Good morning, travelers. Good to see that you are still here. It has been one kind of a journey so far, right? Now you can smile about it. I love the cockiness. The fact that you are now here, you have understood that you have failed to answer the question, who are you? These are lines written by someone anonymous. They say, I have taken the pill. I have hoisted my skirts to my thighs, dropped them down to my ankles, rebelled at the university, skied at the Aspen, lived with 2 men, married 1. I earned my keep, kept my identity, and frankly, I am lost. The world today is obsessed with image. Our so-called self-image has become something we create and choose from a menu of options. We have directed all our gifts, our creative and intellectual abilities towards a declaration of independency from God. We have used the very assets with which He bestowed to us as weapons against Him. Clothed in His very image, we have shaken our fists at God and said with Adam and Eve, "How dare you?" This is why the threat attached to eating the forbidden fruit was so severe. When you eat of it, you will surely die. However, we try in vain to ground this image in ourselves. Without God as the original, we lose any sense of being an image bearer of someone higher than ourselves. Yes, get your notebooks ready. This is your class, Identity 101. You are created with class. God saw all He made, and it was very good. You are a creature made by God. Just in case, you are confusing yourself. You are a creature made by God, as extraordinary as everybody else. You are made up of the body, mind, and soul. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." Never before had God brought into existence a creature with such intimate ties to His own character. We speak of creation of man not only because among God's works, here is the noblest and most remarkable example of His justice, wisdom, and goodness, but because we cannot have a clear and complete knowledge of God unless it is accompanied by a corresponding knowledge of ourselves. Stay with me. The psalmist, as he stargazed, looking at the vastness of the heavens, he wondered, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him? The Son of Man that you care for him?" David concludes in his reflection this answer: "You made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. You made him ruler over the works of your hands. You put everything under his feet, all flocks and herds, and the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea." This reflection is to lead us not to some sort of narcissistic self-centeredness, but to raise our eyes towards our Creator. The culture mandate as God's image bearer means at the very least that it is your duty and your responsibility to reflect the image of God in which you were to delight by making proper use of all God has provided. God blessed his image bearer and said to him, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it." But as a result of the fall, there was a two-dimensional effect. We are disconnected from our fellowship vertically with the Creator, and horizontally we are disconnected from one another. This is why there is a tendency to think too highly of ourselves. It is part of what we inherited from Adam in the fall. Satan was arguing that Adam and Eve could transcend their self-identity as creatures and become gods themselves, autonomous individualists who no longer needed the restraints of a creature-creator relationship. Traveler, this is God's world. Regardless of what we might wish were the case, we cannot eradicate this awareness of God's existence and our accountability to Him, no matter how hard we try or how much energy, time, and money we spend in trying to cover it up. The creature will always be dependent on the Creator, whether the creature recognizes it or not. The more time we spend contemplating our own greatness in the mirror, the more clearly we are bound to see the what's. Without the knowledge of God in whom the image you have been created. Simply put, self-love evolves quickly into depression, which is self-hate. Let me repeat it again. The more time we spend contemplating our own greatness in the mirror, the more clearly we are bound to see the what's. Without the knowledge of God, in whose image you have been created, self-love quickly evolves into self-hate, which is depression. So identity to be understood, we have to understand it in a collective human sense. What makes humans so special? Is it that we have evolved beyond the level of other creatures? We do bear a resemblance to other creatures. For example, wild beasts travel in herds, birds fly in flocks, and humans have often moved in tribes. But we all know that there is something that sets humans apart, something transcendent. Unfortunately, modern science has promised more than it can deliver. Science cannot explain the existence of each of us as a unique self, nor can it answer such fundamental questions like we have today. Who am I? Then the question, who are you, presupposes that humanity exists for a particular purpose. And yes, it does. Although our names may differ, backgrounds may differ, we have different fingerprints, our cultures are different, our skin tones are different, our interests may differ, but we all have a common purpose, which is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. We all have a common purpose, which is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. For the same reason an artist takes pleasure in his masterpiece, God takes pleasure in His works. Thus, the purpose of our creation is the pleasure of God. It is not for your happiness or pleasure that you exist, but for God's. God imagined the world and brought it into being. Wow. And what an imagination. Think of the variety in shades and colors of fish and flowers. Even before the microscope and the telescope introduced us to the micro and macro universes, the details of shape, size, color, and functions were as fascinating, as seemingly infinite as now we know them to be. All of life is to be part of worship, whether planning for the future, naming animals, raising children, building cities, writing music, playing sports, or reflecting on the meaning of it all. Everything is God-centered. Are you with me? But while all creation reflected God's handiwork, only humans could reflect on their reflecting on God's handiwork. There is a sense then in which we were created in order to take pleasure in God as well as Him taking pleasure in us. God is the creator. You are His creature. Let me repeat that again. God is the creator. You are His creature. Only with that perspective as our backdrop can we understand the meaning behind work and leisure, pleasure and restraint, life and death, laughter and tears. Interesting, right? Humans mimic God in imagination. Think of the technological advances in our world today. Only God has the power to create out of nothing. But those He created in His image are able to reflect His creative imagination in an impressive imitation. Dear traveler, work is not merely a means of making money. Work is godly. Why? Because it builds character or scores heavenly points and puts jewels in your crown? No. But because God has freed us from worrying about things in order to simply love and serve our neighbors out of gratitude for the gift we have been given. God is caring for the daily needs of our neighbors through our ordinary vocation. Christian craftsmen should be the best craftsmen. Christian artists should put their hearts and souls into their work. After all, this is not a job. It is a calling. God selected from the rebel race men and women from every tribe and language and people and nation. This remnant from all the world forms a new race. Certainly those belonging to this new race will still belong to the human race, but would be adopted into God's own family. As Peter simply reminds us, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God. Dear traveler, this is your identity. Have a lovely day. You've been listening to May Kirabo, a visual storyteller with Obolamo podcast. For free access to all May's conversations, subscribe to May Kirabo YouTube channel. May and Obulamo Podcast reserve all copyright protection under applicable law.